The Simpsons and video games is a combination that has been around for almost as long as The Simpsons itself. And there has been, a lot. But personally, The Simpsons Road Rage, Skateboarding, and Hit and Run are the games I have the fondest memories for. And that goes double for Hit and Run. I used to play it before and after school, collect all the cars, find all the secrets, and all in all, I probably spent about 40 or 50 hours with the game. And ever since, it has always remained a game I look back on with heavy nostalgia goggles. So let's put that nostalgia to the test. Today I'll be going over the game's development, the gameplay and story, and seeing how it holds up almost 17 years later. And then just go over my quick thoughts on a potential remaster for the game. Timecodes will be in the description below for your convenience, but let's get started. Here is The Simpsons Hit and Run Retrospective. Radical Entertainment received the rights to create games for The Simpsons with a playable driving-based game prototype for what would end up being The Simpsons Road Rage, which released in 2001. The Simpsons meets Crazy Taxi is what it would end up being broken down to, and even go so far as Sega attempting to sue EA, Fox, and Radical Entertainment for the similarities, but inevitably was settled outside of court. Whilst the game received mixed reviews, sales-wise it did very well, and Radical immediately moved on to working on what was originally named Road Rage 2. It didn't take the team long though to refocus their ideas, going back to ambitions they had for Road Rage but couldn't make work in that setting, such as the ability to explore an open world Springfield, a mechanic they had attempted in Road Rage but at the last minute needed to remove. Whilst they wanted to keep the driving mechanics similar to Road Rage, Radical had much bigger plans for Hit and Run, and because of this, looked to other games for inspirations regarding new mechanics, like Super Mario 64 for the game's platforming, and the big one and probably most obvious, Grand Theft Auto, in regards to exploration and mission structure. Early game footage of the cutscenes is, well, horrifying, and I didn't really know where to put this, but it creeped me out enough to say, well, just look at it. The first announcement for Hit and Run wasn't until April 2003, with the headline of the article being Simpsons to appear in mission-based driving game. And that was all the information we had until the game would appear at that year's E3, have a playable demo at a Nintendo event, and have advertisements for the game plastered everywhere. 24 months after beginning work on the game, Road Rage had just 11 months, The Simpsons Hit and Run released in September 2003, receiving both critical and commercial recognition, as many praised the game for really being better than it had any right being. It was clear the love Radical had for the license with Road Rage, but Hit and Run was clearly their love letter to the show, and myself, like many others, adored the game for letting us experience a world we had seen so much on TV. Whilst The Simpsons Hit and Run had exceeded expectations in 2003, the question is, how does it hold up today? Before I talk about the most compelling aspect of Simpsons Hit and Run, I have to talk about the game's story. The best way to describe the story of Hit and Run would be a great episode if it was condensed, or if it was more fleshed out, would make for a great movie. But as it stands in the game, it's just a little padded out. The story revolves around strange happenings in Springfield, with surveillance vans and robot wasps spying on the town, and Homer, Bart, Lisa, Marge, and Apu getting to the bottom of this situation and finding out who's behind it. Surprise, it's Kang and Kodos. They have been filming Springfield for a reality show on their home planet, and they have been using Buzz Cola to make people insane. The Simpsons stop any more Buzz Cola from being manufactured, but Kang and Kodos already released the cola into the water system, leaving the dead to rise up. But even then, Homer finds a way to blow up their ship and return Springfield back to normal. That's about 7 hours of gameplay condensed into the important story moments. Now the game's writing and basic storyline, as I said, would make for a great episode of the show or movie, but it just has a lot of fluff and retreading that it makes the story until the final acts a little lackluster. You see Kang and Kodos behind this whole thing from the second chapter because we see Bart get abducted. Whilst the character dialogue and plot itself is a lot of fun because it is very Simpsons and it has a lot of charm, even though some of the dialogue is a little weird.
Marge, that black van is spying on us.
Oh, homie, you're so sexy when you're paranoid.
You just can't help but feel like some of the storyline padding could have either been removed or expanded upon with more great story moments and funny moments. But I didn't want to revisit The Simpsons Hit and Run because I remembered it being a great story. I wanted to revisit it because I remember the gameplay being a great time. And it still is. Now, admittedly, my nostalgia meter was pretty well maxed out throughout the first chapter, and it's hard not to have that feeling about games you played from the past. Whether the game lives up to your preconceived thoughts or not, initially you can't help but smile and have fun just as you did in the past. The nostalgia goggles do wear off eventually though, and what remains is still a lot of fun, but not as good as I remember. Then again, that's me listening to my kid brain, so it was probably never going to be. The biggest surprise I had whilst replaying the game was it really isn't that much like GTA, and by that I mean there is a lot more driving in this game than I remembered, which makes sense in retrospective considering the game was initially going to be a sequel to Road Rage, but there are 0 missions that don't involve driving, whether it be driving to and from locations, racing someone, destroying someone or something, ramming someone up the arse. That joke's for later. It is all about driving rather than being on foot. Luckily, the driving still feels good to play today. It is a little floaty. I played the game on PC, and if you try and play it with Windows 10, this is what the cars do.
Do you do better?
But the cars handle how they look they should. So bigger cars are almost tank-like and smaller cars are more nimble, and they both have their pros and cons, but the game isn't too challenging, so you can drive cars for pure meme value too. That's the fun of Hit and Run, and that rhymed. You get to drive around different parts of Springfield in whatever you'd like, visit all the iconic locations, see the fan service the developers put a lot of time into, and do dumb shit. The game is funny as well, sometimes unintentionally.
It's okay.
Eat ass.
And I assumed you did anyways. I mean, every guy does. I'm perfectly okay with that.
And while some lines can be repeated shortly after they were said, these oddities don't make driving around Springfield any less enjoyable. The game's soundtrack is another highlight. The tracks vary from peaceful to intense, and they suit the situation incredibly well and only add to the fun of playing the game. Where the game does become a bit hit and miss is once you leave the vehicle. It is oddly satisfying to gather coins and kick pretty much anything. On foot is where you get to explore inside iconic locations like Moe's, the Quickie Mart, Springfield Elementary, etc. And the fan service amongst these locations is impeccable. Where being on foot turns ugly is the game's platforming. It just doesn't feel right. And I'm not sure if this was an issue because I was playing on PC, but a big reason the platforming can be such a ball ache is the camera moves super slow, and it makes it difficult to see how far away a jump is, leading to a lot of this. Luckily, platforming is rarely involved in any mission, and only once is it time-based, so luckily it is just something you encounter mostly from just exploring. Unfortunately, whilst I believe the biggest draw to Hit and Run is the dumb shit you can do, the actual hitting and running mechanics aren't great. The police really just act as the fun police. The AI isn't spectacular, especially pedestrians just standing in your way at times, and your meter will go up rather quickly. So instead of having fun driving around crazily, you need to be careful, especially in missions since they are time-based and it can be a way to suck the fun out of the game. But none of this was as much of a disappointment as the final chapter. My most nostalgic memory. Driving around basically a treehouse of horror Springfield with undead cars, and the quotes were hilarious.
I need your chainsaw to chop up attacking zombies.
But then how will I defend myself?
Mo. Shouldn't the weapons go to save people who have loved ones?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think I made my point.
Well, better go comb my hair before the zombies get here. My life stinks.
But the missions for most of the chapter are the exact same. But not only that, they are the most challenging part of the game. Hit anything, nuclear waste explodes, return to the plant and get more, rinse and repeat, and it's this for most of the chapter, and it's just really disappointing. I know I've been a little negative towards the game, and it's not because I think playing Hit and Run today isn't worth it, because it is, especially if you've got nostalgia towards the game. But the game isn't perfect. I still had a smile from ear to ear whilst replaying Hit and Run, because it is still the best Simpsons game out there. But as a game, it does have its issues. Issues though that with a sequel or remaster could be easily resolved. The biggest reason I wanted to replay The Simpsons Hit and Run is because of the mass outcry for the game to be remastered. And I'm glad I did, because now I know that I don't really want a remaster. I would love to see the game be remade instead. Whilst the game with a new coat of paint would still be enough to get my money, probably, if they were to remake the game, updated with animation-like graphics, mostly the same story with new additions, a fresh platforming mechanic, more mission variety, and a true open world, imagine the praise for the game. I know it seems like a lot to change, and by far the biggest change would be the 3 stages merged into one big world, but if these changes were to be implemented into a remake, it would blow people's minds. People's nostalgic opinions of this game could remain intact if the next time they played the game was through a remake or even a sequel. There is enough Simpsons material today to make for a really incredible Simpsons game. We've seen the evolution of Hit and Run's inspirations. The driving, platforming, and open world mechanics have all improved drastically in the past 17 years. And I think the world is ready for Simpsons Hit and Run to return to the current gen with the upgraded gameplay mechanics of today. I mean, the evidence is out there. But instead of something that still would be a good time with a remaster, I'd be far more impressed and honestly over the moon if they decided to rework the flaws and turn them into positives. But that's my 2 cents on the topic. Maybe some issues I mentioned were just PC related. All I know is I'd like to see more from The Simpsons, and Hit and Run did have the best formula, but my mind races with possibilities at what they could make today. The Simpsons Hit and Run was a real nostalgia trip. Whilst in some aspects my nostalgia and memory of the game wasn't accurate, and by no means is the game flawless, if you couldn't tell. It is still a game that above all else is a ton of fun to play. Unlocking new cars, new costumes, kicking things, collecting coins, exploring the different regions of Springfield, talking to iconic characters, and visiting iconic locations is all, as a big fan of the show, just thoroughly enjoyable. Whilst I believe the game has not aged as well as I would have hoped, I can still recommend you go back and play the game today. I do hope that someday we see some sort of remaster or remake, maybe in the vein of the Crash Bandicoot remaster or CTR remake. But until then, this has been The Simpsons Hit and Run.